Hello there, and welcome to the Hawk Fanatic Rapid Reaction Podcast here on HawkFanatic.com. We will talk to you guys today about your first place in the West, Iowa Hawkeyes. What a crazy season. It's been wild. Big win today against Wisconsin. I'm somewhat thawed out, but not completely. I can feel my feet again, which is good. Rob Howe, joined as always by Jovan Johnson and Jordan Canzeri. You can see them if you're on the YouTube feed. Jordan is in his car driving back from Massachusetts to New York. Jovan is hanging out in your kitchen. Where are you, in your kitchen?
In the dining room.
Dining room. All right. All right, guys. As I do every week, I'll open up the floor to your thoughts on what you saw today in general. Then we'll dive into some more specifics. Jovan, you roll first.
Again, three phases of football, just playing together, playing for each other. What I saw on display was a lot of guys that just 100% believe and play for each other, regardless of what anybody else has to say. Defensively, creating turnovers. Cooper DeJean, what a player he is, what a find he was. That kid alone, I think at one point they showed on the TV that he had more yards than the offense did by itself. And, his impact is shown greatly. Special teams, Torrey Taylor, another great game of punting the ball, pinning teams inside the 20-yard line, and just doing what they do. The only thing that I saw that could improve is the offensive line struggles today were mightily. They were mightily, and guys getting sacks where typical offensive Iowa offensive linemen don't give up sacks so easy, without effort, making teams have to work for it. I think they had 5 sacks today. And probably 3 of them were just missed assignments by the offensive line. That was my biggest takeaway. We couldn't get the run game going that much. We scored when we needed to on short fields, but just got to be better, a little bit better offensively, and that comes with protection up front.
Jordan?
Yeah, just going off. A lot of what I was going to already say, 3 sides of the ball, especially towards the end, the offense started to click a little bit more. Was a little bit nervous early on when Cooper brought back that pick 6, that it was going to be another game the defense outscores. But again, the offense stepped up towards the end. Special teams, great block punt that turned into points early on. It was just well-rounded, smart. And our offensive line, they definitely put pressure on Petras. So there's been
He froze up, Jovan.
Huh?
Can you hear him okay?
Yeah, he's kind of going in and out a little bit.
Okay. We're losing you a little.
Yeah, I'm in the boonies of Massachusetts. But no, our offensive line just has some things they need to fix. Definitely put a lot of pressure on Petras. As Javon already said, just way too many sacks that a few guys coming free. But overall, was just happy for the offense to step up towards the end. But just glad we got the win.
Trying to bring up the box score here. Let's see. No data available. I'll get that in a minute when it comes up on HawkeyeSports.com. They're frozen over there too, I think. It was cold, dudes. It was, wind was whipping, snow was flying. It was Jovan, you played in Canada forever, man. You probably enjoy this weather.
I would love it. I loved it as a player. I would much rather play in conditions like that than to play in rain. Like, I hated rain games, where you had to take the gloves off, take the visors off, and just be out there all natural and with no, other things to help. But I love those games. I love the cold games. Come out with no sleeves on, go around, hit people. People don't want to get hit when it's cold, believe it or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get hit. I had a tough enough time hitting the button on the camera to be able to take photos. So, it's interesting. We were sitting here not long ago. The national narrative was, Iowa was a laughing stock, and it just kind of like globally, Joe, I don't think anyone who followed this team for as long as we have is surprised by this from this program. It was a matter of, and like Jordan was saying, the games today started like a lot of the other games this year where the defense and the special teams were kind of making, we're kind of got Iowa going, but the offense is helping now. And you said it earlier, Jovan, the complementary football is starting to shine through.
I mean, you got to credit the coaching staff because, when adversity strikes, people tend to show their true character and what they're all about. And it could have easily been a lot of players playing selfish football and not caring about the other sides of the ball or the other phases. So, they've done a heck of a job of keeping that team together, keeping the locker room together, and getting kids to believe that, they're in it together. And, when you talk about family, it's all about family at Iowa. They believe in one another and they play for one another. And that was, again, what we saw on display today, because defensively out the gate, they were really good. Special teams picked up and did some things, blocked the punt, et cetera, did some good stuff. And then offense, when they needed it, they came through. And all three phases just played winning football.
This stat I'm going to give now probably going to make Jordan cringe a little bit. The two teams combined to rush the football, and sacks are included in this, so keep that in mind. 76 times for a combined 103 yards. The two teams. Again, 76 yards or 76 carries, 103. Again, sacks obviously involved in that. Wisconsin, 31 carries, 51 yards. Iowa, 45 carries, 52 yards. Why was it so hard to run the ball today, Jordan?
Well, as we mentioned already, we are having some issues controlling the line of scrimmage with our own line. But Wisconsin is always a tough team to run against. As Jovan was mentioning last week when we talked, was when you go against that 3-4 front and they decide to change up the certain ways that they blitz, bring pressure, it's just really hard to combat. And especially when they're able to bring their safeties down in the box a little bit more versus other teams that run a little more spread. It's definitely a hard team to run against. And as we know, just in general, especially running behind a guy, having a leader like Phil Parker, it's always a hard time to run against Iowa. So was definitely not surprised by that going into the game. I expected rushing not to be as up to par as that we would hope for. But they, again, in the second half, made the plays that we needed to, came away with the points, and especially at the end, making that big 4th and 1, turning more and more clock, because at that point, I think there was 3 minutes still left in the game, where that's still plenty to be able to go down and score and then put yourself in a position for an onside kick. So it's just great to see that when it really mattered towards the end, that our offense made the plays that were needed. But again, rolling into next week, just hope we can fix a little more things up on that front line.
Clean football, Jovan, on the Iowa side. Turnovers for Wisconsin, but Iowa played clean football, and that's so huge in this series. It's been so huge in this series. Graham Mertz, 16 for 35, 2 picks. Spencer finished 14 of 23 for 94 yards, but did not. He had the fumble, took a shot, and that one's tough sometimes. But other than that, it was a clean game.
Yeah, penalties, turnovers are tall tale signs of what's happening in the game. And when you can eliminate those, not turn the ball over, play mistake-free football, typically you give yourselves a chance to win. And they played mistake-free. They didn't turn the ball over. They had some outstanding plays in the secondary to make some plays and intercept a couple of Graham Mertz's balls. One that Cooper DeJean put in the end zone, another one that Riley Moss had a heck of a play off of a Kayvon Merriweather tip pass. So, it's just three phases of football playing together, doing what Iowa does. And defensively, giving up less than 10 points in a game is always going to put you in a situation to be successful.
Jordan Spencer looks more comfortable, don't you think? I mean, he just looks like, the throws aren't always there. Nobody's going to be 100%, but he just looks like he's in more control, more calm. I don't know what it is. What are you seeing with Spencer?
Well, I would say the last two games definitely, not including this one, but definitely helped with the confidence and just the offense moving a little more smoothly, switching some of the guys around in the right positions. But this game, again, even though at times I did see that, he was definitely willing to sit in the pocket a little bit more, it was still just a lot of pressure and a lot of hits. And it's hard for anybody, doesn't matter who it is, getting snaps to kind of deal with all that contact and still feel comfortable and confident to make an accurate throw. But I know I'm offense, and I know it's my job to talk about offense, but I still cannot get enough of our defense. If our defense was able to be picked up on fantasy, it would be just points all week, all the time. I think they showed the stats at the end just for defense, special teams, block punt. What was it? 2 picks, 6 sacks. Was it 2 forced fumbles? Fumble recovery. It's just unreal week after week. And if again I'm Spencer, I'm happy to have that defense to just give opportunity after opportunity to get the ball back. But again, have little things we need to work on offensive line wise and things up front. But I think just overall offensively, we're still looking a lot better than we did early on in the year.
Had some you can talk about defense, man, and Jovan can talk about offense. We're not going to restrict anybody here at all on this podcast, and you guys have played at a high level, so I know you understand both sides of the ball. Had some booing in the stadium, Jovan, early in the game because of listen, I'm not by any means a football expert, but if you're paying attention to what that game was like today, it was okay to punt. And Iowa decided to do that early. I know people get pissed off on 3rd and 14 when you run a screen pass or, run the ball. But I thought the play calling was on point today, Jovan.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to boo. I mean, at the end of the day, fans in the stands, when it's 4th and 1, they expect you to go for it. But they don't and the risk that you take when you go for it on 4th and 1, and especially when you're backed up and things like that. So it's a lot of different variables that they don't really get. But as a person on the field, you understand. So, at them and moments like that, you do what's best for the team, punt the ball, flip the field, because when you do that, typically you get the ball in better field position than when you go for it and get stopped on 4th and 1. So, you just gotta be the ultimate game manager, and Coach Ferentz is one of the best in the game at making sure they make the right decisions. So, when you got one of the best punters in the country, you punt the ball in situations like that. You give your defense, who's playing outstanding, the opportunity to go on the field and get stops.
There, we talked about it earlier in the season, Jordan. The ability to play 3 running backs. It worked today. Again, they didn't run the ball that well, but each guy kind of did a little bit and contributed.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of rotation. I won't deny that I was a little bit surprised, thinking that would ride Johnson a little bit more, just from what he's been able to produce and do. But yeah, it's just a committee, and that's something where the guys have to be acceptable towards it and just it's all about team mentality and willing to do whatever you can for your brothers. But I knew going into this game that our rushing wise, we probably wouldn't be as successful as we were against Purdue. But it was still good to see multiple guys contributing and just again alleviating some of the stress of others. If it was just one sole back, where you are a lot less of a risk for injury and certain things like that. So, we'll see who again just continues to get the hot hand rolling forward. But so far, I think Johnson is the guy.
Should be pointed out today that Iowa was without one of its top playmakers in Arlen Bruce. The fourth dinged his shoulder up last week, tried to get through practice this week, just could not do it. Hopefully he gets back next week for Minnesota. Need him for sure. Obviously Cooper DeJean went back and did okay returning punts and everything else he did today. I think he's currently cleaning up the stadium because he did everything else today. So why not just have him do some work after the game as well? He went to a high school, guys, that is 5 letters, and the 5 letters, each of the 5 letters represents a town that make up this school. That's how small it is. All of those towns are too small to actually have a high school, so they all get together and have one high school, and they produce Cooper DeJean, thankfully for Iowa. We've talked about him a ton this year, Jovan, but he deserves it today. Just guy that just play cash, play corner, return punts. He could probably, he can return kicks as well, but you don't want to wear him down too much.
Yeah, the kid reminds me of a bigger version of myself. Like it's crazy how similar our stories are. Like from how we ended up in certain roles. Like my senior year at Iowa, I didn't return punts until Ed Hinkle got hurt. And then when he got hurt, I was put in the role of being a punt returner and went on to end up having a 17.8 punt return yard average, being like number 2 in the country, something crazy like that. I mean, and then in my sophomore year at Iowa, I ended up with 6 interceptions. And Cooper DeJean is doing a lot of the similar things that I did. So it's crazy how much he resembles the production and things like that. He's a heck of a player. And it's a great steal for us to be able to have a guy like him in our locker room because he makes plays all over the field. And it's just amazing to watch.
We lost Jordan. He alerted Jovan and I that he was running a little low on battery on his phone, and hopefully he was not abducted out in the woods of Massachusetts. Hopefully it's just a phone issue. All right. It wasn't perfect on defense. It never is, Jovan. I got to think Phil was pissed off at the coverage breakdown at the end of the first half.
I knew it was a blown cover as soon as it happened.
Yeah, it was. It looked like Riley Moss was handing it off to the free safety there, and the free safety didn't know it was being handed off. Just kind of explain to people what happened there.
I know in Iowa's defense, typically the corner in a 3-by-1 set is always playing man-to-man. So I'm kind of curious to know like exactly what communication was made between the safety and the corner on that play, because it looked like Riley was expecting help and the safety wasn't there, but there was a 3-by-1 surface and he would have been typically in Iowa's defense in man-to-man. So I really don't know what the communication was in regards to that, but it happens. And, when you're out there with a younger safety who doesn't really understand the checks and the calls and stuff of that nature, things like that happen. And I think the guy that was in there was a young guy that isn't normally in that position.
Yeah, and I'm sure Phil corrected those things as soon as they got back to the sideline. And then in halftime, I'm sure he probably handled that very calmly without any profanity.
Oh yeah, that's Phil for sure. But I doubt that he handled that without being pissed off. But he definitely probably yelled a little bit. But at the end of the day, he understands that it's just one play, and things like that happen, especially when you got a rotation of guys trying to go in there and make up for the loss of another guy at that spot.
What are you seeing on the defensive front, Jovan? 4 sacks again today. They got after the quarterback. Really, the last 3 weeks, the quarterbacks have not been comfortable. And I know rotating guys helps. I mean, you put Deontay Craig in and then take him out, put Lucas Van Ness in, and vice versa. I mean, that's just some real guys that would be starting and playing tons of reps on most programs.
Yeah, those guys are getting after it. You know, you applaud the effort that they play with, the tenacity that they play with, because they really get after the quarterback. And it's a sight to see, you know, when you got 2 All-American linebackers in the middle, but you don't have to really blitz them as much, and you can allow those guys to play sideline to sideline like they do. The front is a big part of that, and the success that they're able to have by just getting after the quarterback and being in the position that, you know, they need to be in so that those linebackers can clean up plays. But those guys are playing at a very high level and really playing for each other and doing things the right way, you know, and Coach Phil Parker is doing a heck of a job of mixing in what Iowa doesn't usually do with the blitz packages and things like that. Like, he's been mixing in some things and giving offensive lines fits because they're not used to seeing Iowa rushing the quarterback and doing things in a blitz game. So, you know, he's doing a good job of mixing it up and, you know, just showing a linebacker up over the center, which ultimately they have to count that guy into protection. And then it gives those 4 D linemen one-on-ones, and the center is not really helping either side. So, you know, they're doing a good job of disguising things and mixing it up and just ultimately playing fast and playing sideline to sideline. They made the statement on TV that Iowa plays with 3 levels: the D-line, the linebackers, and then the safeties and DBs. But they do a tremendous job at all 3 levels of tackling. And I think that's the most important part, is just playing with effort and making sure that you're for sure tacklers.
Statistically, 9 tackles for loss, 9 TFLs today by 7 different guys. That's team defense. Jack Campbell led the way, 11 tackles on the day. 6 of them solo, and then Cooper DeJean, 10 tackles on the day. I think Jack Campbell's probably going to be making some money next year in the NFL, man. 6'5" and runs like that, sideline to sideline. That's not common.
That's not common. He's definitely a for sure NFL draft pick. That's without a doubt. At 6'5", 240, 250 pounds, and can run sideline to sideline. Every NFL organization in America is looking for a Mike linebacker that can do that. And they know that for sure there's one in Iowa City.
All right, Jovan. No rest for the weary next week. It's Floyd week. This is a big one. It's my favorite trophy. There's just something about Floyd of Rosedale and the history there to me that makes it, of all the trophies Iowa plays for, the best one. And I know and in-state stuff, but this game be up there. It's going to be freezing cold. They like to run the football. Iowa likes to run the football. I see it kind of being like we saw today. Same kind of game.
Absolutely. It's going to be a slugfest. You know, Minnesota has a really good running back in Ibrahim. So you're going to have to come to play, lace them up, go get tackles, and be physical. It's going to be a physical football game, and it's going to come down to who can win the line of scrimmage. And it's going to be all 3 phases having to play together. Another tough game, but another one of those games where it's a heated rivalry, teams that we hate. But at the end of the day, you know, we got to go out and play assignment sound football and just do what we got to do and not try to do too much. You know, everybody playing for each other and doing the same things that they did today against Wisconsin.
I really like how Iowa's defensive tackles have played better during this win streak. Not that they were playing poorly before, but, you know, and granted, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan, really good backs. But Braylon Allen's a good back, and Iowa was able to slow him down today. Purdue has got good backs. Just seems like those guys have kind of figured things out in the middle there. So I feel a little bit more confident going against Ibrahim with how well, because if the defensive tackles can clog up that middle, it's really hard to run outside on the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, it's hard to run the ball outside against Iowa. You got you got to have a physical downhill running attack to try to even get anything going, let alone try to get the ball on the edge, because the defense is way too fast. And they could easily go from 7 in the box to 9 in the box in a heartbeat, because the safeties are trigger players that are ready to play downhill immediately. And it's been that way for the end of time for Iowa defense. Back when they had guys like Bob Sanders and those guys, they're in the box players right now. As soon as they run, they're playing downhill and getting in the backfield. So, the only way that you can really combat that is to get some sort of physical running game going, where you're running up the middle and getting guys up to the linebackers, and the defensive line just does a tremendous job of not allowing teams to get their offensive linemen up on their linebackers.
So the situation, folks, is Iowa is now 4-3 in the league. I don't know what's going on with Minnesota and Nebraska. Minnesota Northwestern, excuse me. Minnesota wins. It's first place next week. Both teams would be 4-3 ahead of the conference. Iowa lost 3 in a row. Now they've won 3 in a row. Good position here. If Illinois loses at Michigan next week, which is a good chance that'll happen, this is getting kind of muddy now. Just from a approach standpoint, Jovan, you've gone from where people didn't give you a chance, and I started to hear it at the end of the broadcast today. Iowa's now looks like the best team in the West. So you go from people kicking you in the ass to now people patting you on the back. What are the keys in that?
Yeah, you just got to stay humble, stay hungry. Remember those things that people were saying about you when you were on that 3-game lose streak, and let that continue to fuel you down the stretch. Don't never get complacent and allow you to get ahead of yourselves or get too big headed. And, one thing they do a tremendous job of is staying the course and, trusting the process and doing the things that got you there. And if you continue to do that, you're going to continue to be successful and give yourselves a chance to win. I mean, each team that you play every week is capable of winning on any Saturday. So you just got to be ready to play all 3-phase football and be mistake free, not turn the ball over, not take penalties, and allow your defense to continue to put you in good field position offensively with the special teams units, and everything is going to work itself out.
Want to let folks know that support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That's sui.org. Thank you to Systems Unlimited. All right, Jovan, I don't want to end on a down note, but it seems like Spencer's gotten a little bit better. The running game's a little bit more efficient. Defense is what it's been all year. Special teams. Offensive line is still a concern here. What needs to happen here? And after 10 games, is it to the point now where you just have to scheme knowing that you could have problems there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you make changes at this point in the season because of how late it is, but you do have to figure out ways to help them protect. And if Jordan was on, I'm sure he would say, that you have to get the running backs involved in the protection, to pick up different blitzes and different stunts from the defensive line. But, as long as the offensive line struggles, teams are going to continue to pressure you, and it's going to make Petras very uncomfortable standing in the pocket. Unfortunately, he has a very good, outlet in Laporta, but, when he doesn't have time to diagnose the field and be able to get the ball out of his hands, is going to make it tough. So you want to make sure that you get the running backs involved in the protection, and, still don't change much as far as what you're doing schematically, because the guys are starting to get comfortable in those roles of doing what they do. But, just that's the only thing that I would say that needs to maybe be incorporated a little bit more, is incorporating the running backs in the protection.
Maybe a little more motion too, a little bit more jet motion, some things just to kind of get the eyes moving a little bit on defense.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do some things. Obviously, motions help, because when you motion, it puts defenses in conflict, and it makes them have to adjust the things that they're trying to do. So yeah, that would help. Bringing in the fullback, doing a little bit more of the I formation stuff, and with a fullback H-back type of the guy. that can also stand in there and protect. But the only thing when you do that, you limit the amount of guys that can go out for passes. So, but you got a guy like Laporta, you can split him out, put him in the slot, use him as a receiver, do some different things with him. And Luke Lachey is another very good athlete that can go out and spread out and do some things as well. So you can give teams different looks by keeping your same personnel on the field and allowing those guys to possibly help chip a defensive end and leak to the flat, and just doing some little adjustments like that can help that offensive line not really get rushed as much as they have been in the last couple of weeks.
Yep. Hopefully another week of work will help them a little bit more. And I think it was Bo Stevens that got banged up pretty good early in that game. I didn't see if he came back. He was hurting pretty good when he was down on the field. Did you notice if he came back, Jovan?
I don't know if he came back. I know he was down though and kind of walked off with the trainers, but I don't know if he ever came back in the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but hopefully he's okay. Hopefully Arlen Bruce gets that shoulder healed up for next week. Always good to have him as a weapon and somebody that other teams have to prepare for. 1 trophy game down, 2 left. We got Floyd next week, and then the Heroes Trophy the week after that. Iowa has put itself back in position to make it to the Big Ten championship game. This is a lot more fun, Jovan, than it was early in the season, talking about the Hawkeyes.
Heck yeah. When you're talking about the Iowa and Big Ten West champion in the same conversation, that's a promising season for Iowa football. So, just got to stay the course. And again, trust the process, do the little things to pay attention to the details and play fast and physical football the way you've been doing the last 3 weeks. And I think things will continue to work themselves out for the Iowa football program.
I'm ready, man. 2 more weeks. Looking forward to it. We'll be back next week to talk to you guys about the Minnesota game. Hopefully, I'm hoping it's not cold. Who am I fooling? It's going to be freezing up there. But so if you're going, bundle up. I'll see you up there. And Jovan and I will see you next week. We'll be back for the Rapid Reaction podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to the sponsors.